All right, good morning everyone and welcome. We're always happy. These are exciting times of months for us at the Center for Positive Leadership, and we're always excited to share a new tool and introduce one of our affiliated professionals for the center. And so today, as you know, we'll be doing the accountability goal plan tool, and it will be we'll be focusing on how to get unstuck from your work. So it is my pleasure to introduce Ann Hurd and to share the many accomplishments she has and to let you know about what we're doing today. So here's the bio for Ann. She earned her PhD in industrial and organizational psychology from the University of Tennessee. She teaches.
Balls.
Do we have any other balls in the room?
Probably not. We have orange.
Perfect. So let's see. She teaches and consults on areas of executive coaching, leadership and team assessment and development, organizational change and strategic alignment, strategic talent management, and military transitions. In her current faculty position at the University of Louisville, she has served as a lead designer and faculty member for the graduate, undergraduate courses in leadership, coaching and talent development, and organizational change and development, strategic human resource management, talent acquisition, performance management and total rewards, organizational behavior, and global leadership development. So, any of those resonate as topics? Then
Everyone's an expert on all of those topics.
She has the. I'll read a paragraph and she'll offer the caveats for it. So, her research interests center around leadership coaching, leadership development across cultures, and military and career transitions. She designed and facilitated the leadership coaching skills course for the Cardinal Leadership Institute, founded the college's International Learning Global Leadership Development course, and served as director of the Innovative Competency-Based Education Program in Healthcare Leadership, and helped design the interdisciplinary wellness coaching minor. So in coaching executives, she does that at all stages of their careers, and she has a positive vision, values, accountability-based approach to assist leaders in achieving their organizational and individual goals. A visioning process is used to help clients identify long and short-term goals. Assessments, identify values, and ongoing measurement activities provide compelling motivation to help the client stay accountable and achieve in meaningful ways with measurable success. So let me just also add that Ann is just a delightful person to work with. She's been with us, working with the center for a long time, and has lent her expertise in different ways. And so I enjoy her and look forward to you getting a chance to get to know both her and the new tool today. So, thank you.
Yay! That was. So I was wondering, accountability can be a heavy topic. Just the word accountability sometimes can. It brings forth different feelings than, for example, play or some of our other virtues. So I thought it might be nice if we had one of our resident experts start us with a mindful moment and feel some centering and joy before we hit the topic.
Just ignore me.
Okay.
Ignore this bright light. Thank you for the invitation to share a process that I personally do when I join meetings like this. And I like to think of these short pauses before an activity or transitioning as going from getting there to being here. So we all are in the process of getting here, and now we can be here. And it is as simple as taking the invitation to just drop your hands. It's really helpful to do when I teach at Earth and Spirit Center, we do very dramatic things like, you can do it if you want. But there's some good neuroscience behind why we want to just because then we can realize this is where I am. You can close your eyes if you want, or you can just find a soft gaze somewhere. But the idea with that is to give yourself permission to become aware of where you really are. That's it. The invitation is to gather data points about this physical space, noises, temperature. And then also your experience of being in this physical space, the sensation of your feet on the floor, your seat on a seat. Perhaps the sensation of your breath. Just being aware of you've been breathed all morning and now you can be aware of that sensation. You can be aware of your internal weather, like thoughts, feelings, all that busyness. And then please remind yourself, you have no obligation to those thoughts because you're choosing to be here. Bring that to a close. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. So accountability. I want to thank Ryan and Rami for being accountability experts on this journey and bringing forth the accountability tool. They really are both experts. Rami finishing a doctoral degree at the same time that she runs this program and does a million other responsibilities and stays accountable with all of them. And Ryan, wow, I just came across another accomplishment that you have been accountable for. So Ryan, I don't know if you saw it on LinkedIn that he has won the Best Paper Award for the Journal of Behavioral Science, which is a top journal in the field. So it's amazing. So we all have, I think it's important, and it goes along with Ryan's article, which is on appreciative inquiry and looking at positive leadership, which is what this is all about, is to acknowledge your successes. So yes, the title of this particular tool in positive leadership is Getting Unstuck. So yes, we are acknowledging that sometimes we get stuck. It's also important to acknowledge all those times when you have not been stuck and you have moved forward and you have achieved what you set out to achieve. Hi, Henrietta. So our agenda is to look at accountability, the causes of stuckness, and then delve into what we're calling a PAL, your personal accountability leadership tool. You are your own pal is one of the messages here. So what do you all think about when you think of the word accountability? Just throw out some phrases. What comes to mind if you were going to define it?
Responsibility.
So responsibility. Reminders. So remind other people, remind yourself, just remind that you need to get this done, or that's nice. Follow through. Integrity. So what do you mean by integrity in terms of accountability?
Just owning it and being, responsible and good, bad, and ugly. Just owning it.
Yeah, it is what it is. Sabrina?
I think about it as I'm accountable for my abilities. Accountability.
Oh, okay, say more about that, because I'm thinking some of my abilities are God-given or I'm born with, so I do with them what I can, but I don't have some abilities too, as far as the Olympics coming up. Never gonna happen.
But you have the ability to say, that's not my gift, but what is my gift is I'm gonna go do it, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So it's the recognition of, I can go out and I can jog, I can work out, but I'm not gonna run, a 9-second 100-meter, and that's okay.
And that's okay. Okay, so accountabilities.
Account for my abilities.
Account for my abilities, my strengths, which really takes us back to Henrietta's wonderful Ikigai tool last time, which helped us acknowledge our abilities and our talents. Did anyone in here run, or I don't know if it's called running, do the triathlon this past weekend? That wasn't on your ability list to count? Okay. I thought there might be a chance. It was a big deal here in Louisville. So accountability, doing what we say we'll do. We are accountable to ourselves, to our abilities, acknowledging them. It's an integrity, a core value for most people, right? So some numbers here that I came across in looking at accountability and how people move forward with habits. 91% of respondents in, I believe this was a CCL, Center for Creative Leadership survey, indicated increasing the ability to hold people responsible is their top leadership priority. So looking at it as in a leader of other people position, 82% of executives say they have little or no capacity to hold others accountable, which is a lot because that is kind of part of your job. Only 14% of employees say that their performance is handled in a way that encourages them to be more accountable, and 69% of employees don't believe they're living up to their potential at work. So several of these statistics give a glimpse into where accountability can be a stress point, right? We're talking here about personal accountability as self-leadership. So we can for sure use a lot of what we talk about when we are helping others be accountable. That our focus though is on getting ourselves unstuck where we might be stuck and being more accountable with achieving our goals. So sometimes with personal accountability, we get stuck. I asked everyone that I came across in the past few weeks, tell me, have you ever been stuck? And most of them actually resonated with that question, but some of them were like, no, I always get everything done that I say I'll get done. And then when they thought about it a little bit more, for example, this was someone who was doing the triathlon. A friend of ours came up from Alabama to do it. She said, well, at work, bigger projects, if they're really, really big, then I do get stuck because I just don't want to get started. It's too much. And so I have plenty of other things to do. So I just don't ever start that project. But it took her a while to think of that example because in her other areas of her life, she does feel like she gets everything done that she sets out to do. Obviously, doing a triathlon would fit with that. So here is one perspective. You all may have seen this quote before. I can do it, he shouted at the figure across the room. All my life you've been holding me back, beating me down. I've had it. Why? Why can't you just let me be? I could really be somebody, he continued now in a pleading voice. I hope this isn't a trigger. So it's a little upsetting, but it's kind of true. So for a while he was quiet, except for the sound of his own deep breathing. He just stared at what he now realized what was his ultimate adversary. The figure was still, it said nothing. He sighed deeply and shifted his gaze away from the figure to the bright lights of the city below. Beginning to see the possibilities for his life, he felt a surge of excitement, of potential purpose, go through his every fiber. He was lost somewhere in his imagination for what seemed several minutes. Suddenly, reality hit him squarely and coldly again. His sense of possible escape was lost. He felt the chains weighing heavy on his soul, and he returned his gaze slowly, steadily, helplessly toward his oppressor. Who is he looking at? Himself in the mirror. Sometimes we are the cause of getting stuck, and we are that barrier ourselves that we want to get over or figure out a way to get through. So I got an email recently from Sean, who is one of my executive coaching clients from about 4 or 5 years ago. And I wanted to share with you some basics that I remember about Sean. At the time that I met him, we were, sitting in this wonderful space, a coaching room and a beautiful building, School of Business in Maryland. And he was pretty relaxed in his chair. He's somewhere around in his 50s, give or take. I have trouble telling ages. Everybody, you all look so young now. But it's somewhere in that age range. And as he spoke, he said he really felt he was at a crossroads in his life, and he was weighing his options, looking at a lot of factors, like he was thinking about his age and his job. He made, according to him, he was comfortably off. He was former military also, and he was now in an executive position. It's not what he saw himself doing long term. He still, though, was the primary caregiver for his older son who has disabilities, and then also for his wife with chronic health issues. So caregiving was a big part of his responsibility, which was the accountability word we heard first. His longing is to move to Utah. It's been in the back of his mind forever. It's been an intention, something he's always wanted to do, always intended to do. He also has a longing to write a book. So he does write in his spare time. He had some poetry that he shared with me. He didn't know if anyone else would think the poetry was good. But this was something that was really on his mind, he was longing to do. He also talked a lot about needing to make a lot of repairs on his house before putting it on the market if they decided to move to Utah. So moving from coast to coast. He did not have another position lined up in Utah. He was just kind of thinking about all the possibilities, and he kept coming back to all the repairs he needed to do on his home before he would put it on the market. He is very good at doing those kinds of repairs, so I don't know, he talked about stuff, drywall, plumbing, leaks, I don't know all of the things that had to be done, but he talked about them a lot, so they were on his mind. He really feels a sense of urgency, and then he also feels trapped. So that the situation that he's in, he could easily stay where he is and live a comfortable life the way that they are living. He has a great routine as far as getting his wife and son out and getting some exercise, and they do have some routines that work well for them. And with his work, he basically wants to be accountable to himself. So he wants to be his own pal, personal accountability leader. And he doesn't want to keep kicking the can down the road as far as some of these bigger goals. What do you hear when I'm trying to describe Sean? what would you say are some of the ways that he might be stuck, or some of the considerations? If you were talking to Sean, what might you ask him to help provide more clarity?
I think I would ask, like, what's holding him back from making the repairs on his house. If he's very skilled at that, it sounds like, and potentially might have the resources and money to do that, what is holding him back from doing it? That'd be my first question.
So you would ask, what is holding you back? And you would focus on the repairs, maybe, because that seemed to be a low-hanging fruit as far as, you know, the big rock is making a big move and writing a book. Is that what you were thinking? What else might you? Yes.
I want to know if his wife was working, because that makes a difference too if he's the sole breadwinner.
He's the sole breadwinner, and she's the chronic illness is too much for her sometimes to even get up and move about. So the caregiving was a major theme also. The sense I had was that he did it with joy. It was a thing, though. I mean, it's definitely a responsibility. What else might you?
I'd ask him what's most important to him right now, because what I think, it may be an overwhelm issue, and that's a lot he's got going on. So what's the most important thing right now, and how do you start to organize priorities around that?
That's awesome.
If he has the desire to move back where family is, then who can he reach out to? What is his network? Is there someone that, you know, perhaps can, you know, refer him to somebody that can provide him with, you know, a job, or, you know, follow his passion?
So, well, I do this alone, is what you're saying. So ask a question about who your network is. What is it that's drawing you to Utah, which was his family. I forgot to say that. Extended family. So that's awesome, yes.
The move to Utah would be something I'd want to explore more. Because I'm kind of wondering, since he's the primary caregiver of two people, is he worried about his age? Is he looking to be close to family for that support network, to be able to care for, especially the son who's younger? As the son grows and he's aging himself, is he looking to that family to help him with that? Is that something he's thinking about?
Which would make sense, right? I mean, we cannot go through life alone. And essentially a lot of what he did, I mean, they had friends, but not close family in the area. What else would you say might be stuckness areas?
Is it just in his head, or has he shared the vision with his two other people in his family? Has he articulated, like, or is it just floating ephemeral in his head?
Well, he allowed it to come out in our wonderful space,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
where
so there's obviously
sunlight coming
Yeah.
through the windows. It is
Yeah.
a really wonderful space.
Yeah.
It didn't sound like it was his house when he talked about all the repairs. So sometimes, you know, the power of place makes a difference. But yes, have you shared this? And the stakeholders involved, for sure.
I might ask him, what would you do if you had 10% more courage than you have right now?
Oh, nice. Wow. And then the response might be,
It could be a lot of things, I assume, right? And it would open up a different conversation. But when I look at this, I do think, you know, there's some practical considerations, but I also think there's some underlying fears in what's driving him. And I think that might be a way to help him confront his fears and see which ones, you know, he's willing to tackle. He might ask, what would you do if you had 10%? What would you do if you had 50%? What would you do if you had 100% more courage than you had right now? And you know, I think that, you know, as I look at the list, he's capable of making the repairs. So it's not ability that's stopping him, I look at
He's also capable
moving-
of hiring them out.
right?
Right.
That's
But he did talk about frugality as being a really core value, so he wanted to do them himself.
although, like at some point, sometimes we have to question our core values,
Yeah.
and that might be something I'm afraid to do. Anyway, so I think there's just so many things that could be unpacked by saying, like, first of all, let's acknowledge that I have fear, you have fear, we all have fears. And if we first acknowledge that, then what do we actually do about it? But sometimes you can't do anything about it till you acknowledge it.
Wonderful. I wish I had thought of that exact question, because that's one of our virtues in the Center for Positive Leadership, right, is courage. And it seems to be all of the virtues are, hand in hand with accountability. Either one and the other can be foundational for the other. Rainey, what were you gonna?
No, I was thinking about, I used to work in social work, and we have something called narrative therapy. And so, like, asking him how he could rewrite his story to get to that ending, that outcome that he wants.
Yes.
So,
I love that.
That's a really
Similar to what we
powerful
did
tool.
last month with Henrietta, and then the month before, is really articulate your narrative, which is part of our POW. That's wonderful. So, golly, I was going to wait till the end, but what do you think happened with Sean?
Hopefully he made his vision, proliferated his vision. That's what I hope.
He did all of his vision. So that is the part our coaching engagement was for about a year and a half, and this was several years ago. And so I once in a while would get updates, emails from him. I knew at the end of our coaching engagement that he had put his house on the market, and yes, he was full steam ahead moving to Utah. And he had dusted off one of his poems and floated it with a writing group. And so the email that I received just a couple of days ago that sparked this and really brought tears to my eyes is that he's in Utah, family is happy. He's published his first book of poems. He got involved. He said it was hard. It was very difficult, that when he got there, the step he took was to become involved there with a writing group where they are very intense and give each other feedback. And he said that was helpful. What he learned from that group is that his writing is good. And then he went on to publish some individual pieces, and then he just published a book, and he wanted my address so he could send me the book. So he managed to move past the fear for sure, because it would have been quite easy, in a way, simple, to stay where he was. They were comfortable, and the money situation, he didn't mention that, so I didn't ask about that. So I love your questions for helping Sean move forward. I think we saw several elements of stuckness. This is just brainstorming. What are some ideas that you would say can lead to being stuck as far as moving forward with a goal that you have? We've got procrastination gone wild. We have fear. There's supposedly fear of success as well as fear of failure, both of them. Sometimes both of them can be related to an underlying value of perfectionism and wanting to be perfect. There is what you said, what's important, the big rocks versus the small rocks, what do we usually focus on? Sometimes it's how do I move forward? Do you see anything else that you would say are contributors to stuckness? Yes.
For me, it was how my decision to get unstuck was going to affect my family.
Oh, can you share?
Yeah, so I just left Bellarmine and started here on May 6th. But my daughter was a senior in high school when I was making the decision to stay. But then I had to make the decision to leave while she was a freshman at Bellarmine. and how that was going to affect her. So she's good though. She's a trooper. She said you do what you need to do. So
You weren't able to get her to come to UML
she
instead.
will. She will, but she can't. She won't get the tuition or mission until I've been here a year. So she's going to do JCC in the meantime and get some more like gen eds.
Wow, what a teamwork makes the dream work effort. That's amazing. So, thank you. Yes.
I feel like a lot of times what holds us back is lack of information because we're going on assumptions. You know, I could never publish a book because I don't know how to, I would, you know, it's impossible, right? Or I don't, you know, like I don't have it, whereas maybe I just don't have enough information of knowing how I would publish a book.
Yes.
Or I don't know how to, you know, so a lot of times we go on assumptions or presumptions, but we're not actually standing on solid information.
Yes, absolutely. And what holds us back from going and finding that information?
Well, because sometimes our assumptions and presumptions scare us or feel right, and so we're like, or we don't know where to start, or who do I ask, or what questions do I, it can be hard to.
Yes, sometimes just that, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Well, sometimes you don't know what that first bite should be, really. Going and getting information is good. So a lot of times, a lot of impediments, and you all mentioned this in accountability, is that humans tend to play the blame game. And a friend of mine gave me a blame game that she just came across. And it looks like so much fun. Where are we on time? Does anyone?
We're about halfway through.
Okay. So I just wanted you to know this game exists, and it says it's perfect for dysfunctional families. And it says, because passing on blame saves your own hide. So what you do is you practice different ways to creatively blame others or other situations. You throw the ball around to your family members and dig into that dysfunctional. It does say it's great for home or office. It's easy to pass around, so maybe when we're doing our PAL, you can catch each other doing some blame game. It did look really, really funny. Laura Savatsky gave me that. Another thing we touched on is that habits build over time, and so a lot of getting unstuck involves coming up with new habits. How easy, how difficult is that? Some of you do this for a living. What's the wisdom about how do we get new habits to overcome our old ones that are keeping us stuck? Do you have a?
Well, I don't know that I do it in a healthy way. I feel like if I'm not able to move forward in one direction, I pivot and I try to figure out where else I can invest myself that's still in a meaningful way. And that's just part of my habits, I guess, the things that I like to build and do around myself.
So am I hearing that you'll look for an open door and pivot and go through that open door if you're feeling stuck?
Yes.
Trying to move in this direction?
Yes.
Do you have an example?
Yeah. So for example, I just started here at U of L in October, so I started a new job. And at my old job, I was really used to programming and a lot of face-to-face interaction and really doing a lot of investment in student, staff, and faculty, like well-being, leadership development, and just being there for people and lots of programming. In my new role, it's not so much all of that interaction. And so I needed to create space for myself where I can have those interactions for myself because that's what fills my cup. And that's part of my habits. I just have to do that or I don't feel fulfilled. So, yeah.
Which is wonderful self-awareness, right? I mean, a Harvard Business Review article, I think it was by Urich, but quote me on that for sure, said that less than 50% of executives actually have a great deal of self-awareness, and this is probably with some of those EQ assessments that have been validated. But it's necessary before you can get unstuck. So that's why we are focusing some on just exploring possible reasons for being stuck as a way to have the right way forward or a good way forward to get unstuck. The habits that can build, sometimes they happen just without even realizing it, right? I actually had here at U of L, there was free coaching at one time. I don't know if there is, but I had been a coach for a couple decades, and I thought, I want to have my own coach. And so Paula Comer, does anyone know her? She's wonderful. She coached me, and my goal was simply to break the habit of going to bed late at night and getting up early. Well, I thought it was simple. It was very difficult. I mean, I've been doing this for decades, right? Starting as a teenager, staying up late. So I have some familiarity with being stuck and trying to move forward, breaking a habit. I will say I'm now a morning person. Yay! But it took a lot of work. Well, I failed at first. So then Paula, the coach, had me be very incremental and intentional about just moving my bedtime up a little bit. I mean, even like by 10 minutes. So I'm starting out at 2 in the morning. I love that time. And so that's what I mean. It took a while. And then getting up early, even if I'm still tired from being up at 2 in the morning. So it was a process. But it was, the first time I failed, I didn't even want to report back to her, right? Accountability. She's my accountability partner. And it was okay. Hey, let's just change the goal. Let's make it easier. Let's do incremental steps instead of the big steps. So that's kind of a simple example, but it's a real one. So the stuck accountability leader, who we'll call Sal, asks, what can I blame? How can I ignore this big rock and pretend it's not there? How can I stay busy with other priorities? How can I be expected to achieve such a tedious or overwhelming or selfish or selfless goal when my plate is already full? How can I keep doing what I've always done and expect different results? The effective person accountability leader, who we'll call Pal, asks, how can I take complete ownership of this situation? What are my fears? How can I overcome the causes of my stuckness? What are some tough conversations I need to have, as Patty said, with the other stakeholders involved in this? How do I practice these conversations? Who has expertise and support that I can tap into? Whose perspective is important for me to get? What's my vision for this accountability goal? How does it align with my values? So take a minute and write a sentence to yourself on one of the cards on the table or on your notes. Write an I am or an I can statement to address your Sal and to be your Pal. An example here is from Stuart Bewley, the storytelling hero, who does a lot of work with how to tell stories, and in his case, kind of combating the imposter syndrome from growing up and being bullied that his stories don't matter. So his statement is, I know that what I do transforms lives, so I will keep doing it relentlessly. That was his statement. So give yourself a minute to write a statement. So we will use these statements and come back to them and hopefully have a chance to share them with our tables in a minute. Let's do the 5-box exercise as a way to focus in on one area where you might be stuck. So in this activity, just answer briefly each of these 5 questions in the box. And again, a card or on your notes. So think of whatever pops into your head. What is a goal that you've had for a while, but you've not achieved it? Big or small goal, any kind of goal, but something that you've had for a while and you have not achieved this goal. So jot that one down. Sean had some big goals, and then he had some lesser, more tangible goals. To make the repairs on his house. Another one is to move to Utah. Another one is to write a book and publish it. So number 2, how long have you had this goal? Just put a number on about how long you've had this goal. Number 3, a bullet point, what has gotten in the way? So jot down what has gotten in the way. The 4th box is, what is one small step you can take to move forward with this goal? What is one small step you can take to move forward with this particular goal? And the 5th box is, how would or how will you feel when you have achieved this goal? How will you feel when you have achieved this goal? What will be different in your life? Jot down the feeling that you would have. Henrietta told us last time that feelings matter. Okay, so I guess my question now is, which of these questions, of the 5 questions there, resonated with you the most? And there's no right answer, but which one kind of sparked an aha moment or an intention?
So the one with what has gotten in the way, and I kept going, like, excuses, and I said, I think it's fear. And it gets down to that root of it. And then now it's peeling back. Where's the fear coming from?
Wow. Can you share more, or we can wait till later?
So you want me to read out just my whole thing?
Sure.
So I've written a book, and I've been putting off picking a publisher for 6 months. Like, I'm going back and forth, and so it's been picking a publisher. I've been doing it for 6 months. And then first I wrote, well, it's the number 3, what has gotten in the way? Well, like, it's confusing, and everyone offers different things, and what do I really need? And then it just came down to fear. And then 4 is, I've just brought in somebody to help me think through it, someone that has published multiple books. He's at Harvard, so he's reviewing the contracts today. So that's a good thing. And then I'm going to feel elated when this is done.
Yes, wonderful. Congratulations for writing the book. We also have another resource right here of a newly published book. Wonderful book.
Happy.
Henrietta. Meet Sabrina.
Deb Claire.
Oh, Deb.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Who else could share which of these questions was helpful?
I don't know, well, I guess in terms of being an aha, how will you feel when you have achieved the goal? I'm constantly thinking about that question because I feel like I'm always like not quite satisfied or not content with where I am. I'm always looking to the next thing. And so I'm always
more syndrome.
Yep, and I'm trying to always focus on, like, I'm good here and keep on and be, I guess, like, I think I have an expectation that I need to be better, but I think it's just a stress, a pressure, feeling like I need to do more.
So how will you feel when you've achieved it? Is your answer, I'll feel like I need to do more?
Yeah, I think it's mixed. Like, I think I've felt proud and respected in some areas, but I've always felt like it's not good enough too. So I feel mixed with that. Yeah, that question is always like oh no, like what is my end goal? I don't know always.
That is very insightful. Okay, accountability partners. Focus on this one when we do our next activity. So, any of these questions can be helpful, obviously. Even just naming the goal, recognizing, oh, I've had this goal for 40 years. If not now, when? What has gotten in the way? What's the most common answer? Oh, 5. I was just thinking basic time. I don't have time.
But that's an excuse.
Right. And then when you dig deeper, it's the fear, right? And one small step, that can be quite helpful because even a tiny step, you took big ones by getting the expert to move you forward. And then, of course, how will you feel? So let's give a start at your PAL Canvas plan, your personal accountability leader Canvas plan, and you have one in your notes. The top 2 are things that we have done in the Center for Positive Leadership, some of the tools showcases. So some of us might kind of have done these top 2 first. Naming your goal area is important, and you can, of course, change the label as you kind of discover. And really trying to free write a couple of ideas about why this is important to you, similar to what we just did. Ryan, can you speak, because you're an expert, about how it's helpful to name and free write the reasons for?
So on the name, I think it's actually surprising when you actually sit down with yourself or with other people. Like, we often think that we have goals when we don't. And what we're actually doing is we're responding to problems, which are other set goals, or they are things that have knocked me out of my status quo, so I'm trying to get back to the status quo, and I don't realize that while that's an implicit goal, it may not be the goal I want or that's appropriate for this situation or whatever it may be. So just actually making yourself name goals. Why am I behaving this way? What am I trying to accomplish? What do I actually want to create? Adds enormous clarity a lot of times because we're not aware of like how we've just fallen into what we're pursuing. And then on the reasons, one of the things that's interesting about that is that we often become much more like if you actually take the time, 30 seconds, and say, why do I want to achieve this goal? The motivation goes up incredibly because we've actually identified it. We assume we're doing it for reasons, but a lot of times there's external reasons or whatever else. And number one, if we can't identify the reasons, then maybe we shouldn't be pursuing this goal. And number two, if we can, then we're going to be much more motivated about doing it. And we will also maybe discover things in the past that we've done that were successful and helped us with this that would not only give us motivation, but guidance for how to accomplish that goal.
Yes, thank you. Patty?
Thank you, that's really helpful. The other thing I want to comment is about the thing about the timeline.
Yes.
When you were talking about the experience with Paula, I was flashing back to when I was trying to get myself to exercise. This was like 10 years ago when my kids were really little and I had a full-time job, and I was like, how am I ever going to do this? So I gave myself to figure it out by the end of the year, and the end of the year came and I still hadn't figured it out. So I forced myself into an accountability program where I had to show up. Look at you might remember the 6 a.m. boot camp. So that was rad, but I was like desperate. I was like, that's the only thing that's going to make me do it. And it was terrible, and I'd be doing it and I'd be like, this is hell, what am I doing? And I would make a deal with myself in the class, and I'd say, I'm going to figure out another plan before the next class, and if I don't, I have to come back. And 2 years
later, because I would feel so good at the end of the class. I was like I would be like so miserable in the middle, and here like, why am I doing this? Is hell. And then at the end, I would feel so great. And after 2 years, I was like, it was become a habit, and then I could find other exercise that wasn't so punishing. But my point is that I created this mental timeline for myself, like, okay, these are, and if I don't have another plan, then this is what I'm gonna have to do. And and I realized that what I'm not doing is I'm not giving myself a timeline, and I don't have there's no consequences.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share, when you were talking about Paula, I was just flashing back to that. And
Absolutely. So whichever of these boxes resonates with you, tackle it for your goal. The resources and support and the measures are two areas that we tend to just forget. So as Patty said, an actual timeline and then a resource and support is an accountability partner, someone who actually will care. You can ask them to care, that you report in. In your case, it was yourself that you made a bargain with yourself that you would do this if X, Y, Z. And measures. How will you know you've been successful? If it's a goal that's hard to measure, like a friend of mine has a goal to clean out upstairs closet. That one's easy to measure because the closet will be cleaned out. But other goals, like to feel more confident, that's hard to measure. You can just put a measure on it yourself. Say, I'm going to go from right now, I think I'm a 5 in confidence, and I want to get up to a 9 on a regular basis when I check in with myself before I do XYZ task. So give a shot at filling this out, and share, ask questions, coach each other as you're working on this. So who can share learning, just a couple of tidbits and takeaways from this experience so far? Obviously, I really encourage you to use this tool. You can do it online, that might be easier. Update it constantly, come up with new resources and support, add celebrating success to that resources and support, because you forget to do that. You always say, what am I going to do next? And you don't put the bow on it of celebrating. So quick, some takeaways so far from using this tool. Aha moments.
I'll say I just had done like a mid-year goal reflection. So I was like, well, I know what my problem area is for the second half of the year, but going through this tool made me think a little harder and realize what was underneath it, and maybe some of my inner dialogue back and forth that was actually holding me back, and actually some new solutions. So yeah, thanks for that.
Wonderful. Other thoughts?
For me, it was the part about thinking about how my life and work would improve if I were able to stick with it.
Yes, and that's one thing about that Ryan talked about as far as naming the goal, because for me, with exercise, it's simply that I want more energy, right? I just want to have tons of energy and get more done. But for others, there are all kinds of reasons why you would want to do exercise, right? I would like to fit into those pants again, so naming the goal and really visualizing what you have in mind is helpful for the rest of the process. The other thing I heard, and I really want to drive home, and we talked about this, is the importance of accountability partners. Make sure you are not doing this alone. You can get a board of advisors. A lot of my executives actually do this. But you can also just tap into, hey, your neighbor right here and say, hey, can I text you when I go for that first 5-minute walk as my first small step with my exercise goal? And you can be an accountability partner back for them. That is really, really huge. So in your in your handout, we have just a brainstorming list of some accountability tools that can be helpful. There are all kinds of tech tools, right, for mindfulness activities, visualizing. One that I didn't get on the list, but Patty Payette has been touting it and focusing on it, which is the reverse bucket list. So instead of adding more to your list, you actually diligently, intentionally take things off your list. And that is something to be accountable for.
That causes you a panic attack, right?
I
need to do it, I know.
So quote from a fellow U of Lian, it's all about choice and how you show up. Thank you all for your participation. Give us feedback. We'll be accountability partners also.